Hi everyone, and welcome to my fall series. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd love it if you click that button. For this craft, you're going to need a Dollar Tree pumpkin, some of these little signs from the summertime, or you could use these signs, but they don't have arrows on them. I'm after the pole in the middle there, that wooden stick. And I'm just removing the staples on the back of the other little arrow signs. I'm going to rip the signs off of that stick because I want this stick for something else. And the first thing I'm going to do is use my homemade chalk paint to paint my pumpkin white. If you're interested in seeing how I made this, it's actually my new video on chalk paint that I made during the summer. It's titled 3 New Ways of Making Chalk Paint. You can check it out there. I used number 3 to make that recipe. I really like it. It covers really, really well. It's amazing. And now I'm just going to give it a coat of the paint in Antique White by Apple Barrel. It's kind of like a cream color with a little bit of yellowish, I guess. It's a little more yellow than I wish it was, but it's a very pretty color. And I'm going to paint all 3 of these signs with the Antique White. And for those of you that noticed, right before I painted these, I was sanding down the little holes from the tacks that I pulled out. That sanding and roughening up the surface in those areas turns out to make really good texture for dimension when we go to stain these. So if you want to add a little more sanding here and there, the stain kind of grabs where I sanded and makes it look even better. So for the look we're going for. So I choose white for the stick because I want a bit of contrast between the signs and the stick. And now we're going to take an antique wax. You can use any brand of antique wax you want. If you're interested in the one I'm using, it's down below in my description box. And I'm taking a blush brush. Yes, that's a blush brush. I love staining with that sometimes because it's a very soft, fluffy kind of airy surface, and when you kind of want to float your brush over your craft, it works really, really well for that. And then just to spread that out to make sure that all the areas are covered, I'm using a baby wipe to wipe my fingers as well, but that's how I get it to kind of stain all over, and you get that look. So I'm doing the same thing with a baby wipe now and some orange paint. This orange paint is actually the Dollar Tree orange paint. I just don't like the way the Dollar Tree paints the acrylic paints come in the squeeze bottle, because if I accidentally squeeze out too much, I can't get it back in the bottle. So I just used an old orange paint container, rinsed it out, and filled it up again with the Dollar Tree paint, but it ends up being a really pretty orange. And to make my little designs on my pumpkin, this time I use a bigger Dollar Tree pumpkin to trace that and use it like a template. And now I'm taking a little bit of the burnt umber from Apple Barrel paint. I just took a baby wipe again. I smeared it over the orange. Now the orange was dry. I dried it with a blow dryer first. And I'm edging the pumpkin now, just giving it a little bit of a border. And I'm taking my sponge I'm showing you here. I'm just going to use the edge of that sponge to make those lines stand out that I drew with pencil ahead of time, right there. And we're just going about the process of distressing and aging this pumpkin and making it look like those wooden pumpkins you see on Pinterest when you look up rustic wooden pumpkins. They always kind of have this look here where the orange is kind of smeared. That's the way you get it. Ladies and gents, you just smear your orange on, and then you smear some brown paint or stain over it. And then after I do that line, I decide it's a little too harsh, so I'm just taking the sponge and kind of smearing it and softening it and blurring it a little bit so that it blends with the rest of the look of the pumpkin. And now I'm using some of the Dollar Tree twine. I just wrapped it around my fingers to make a simple bow. This is a very rustic piece, so I'm making it just very simple. Less is more with this one for sure. And I turned it sideways to hide the hole on the top. That was a little trick I did. So if you guys don't feel like using a wood filler and filling that little hole at the top of the pumpkin, just make a bow and turn it sideways. And then I'm going to go ahead and write 3 phrases on each of these arrow sticks. We're going to the pumpkin patch day, you guys. So there's hot cider, there's pumpkins, and there's hay rides. And I purposely use a brush to paint it because if you use a paint pen, you're going to get a really clean, crisp look. If you want that, that's fine. Do what makes you happy. But I wanted it to look really homemade, like a farm. like somebody's kid on a farm made the sign for them when they were having their little, I live by pumpkin patches, and the signs usually are hand painted like this, kind of roughly with a brush. So that's the look I was going for. You can do it either way. And now I'm using dunnage blocks. These are free pieces of wood you can get from Home Depot. They throw them away. Some managers are nice about it. They give it to you. Some don't. But they are great for crafts. I'm using it for a stand, and they have a natural rustic look to them. They are the pieces of wood that the straps go around to bring in the big, huge plywood that Home Depot brings in. So they throw those away usually, and like you can see, they're great for crafting. So I just reinforce it with some extra hot glue, glue the pumpkin on the front, and this is what we end up with. For this craft, you're going to need a Dollar Tree wreath form, a family sign or a sign of your choice, and some ribbon of your choice. I'm going to be using the buffalo check ribbon I have here, and this is really easy. You're just going to wrap up your wreath form with your ribbon. So you start off with gluing the beginning, and you wrap it up, and you only need to glue the very end. And I always get a lot of questions about that pink spatula. That is a makeup spatula, and you can find it in the makeup section at Dollar Tree. You can find it at Walmart, and you can find it also on Amazon. I have a link down below in my description box. Most of my supplies, if not all of the ones I use in videos, I try to put down in my description box. And if you're wondering how to find the description box on a computer, you click See More, and a drop-down menu will appear, and you'll see all this information, products that channels use, links to the ones they're using, so you can find it if you want the same product. And if you're on a phone or a tablet, like a cell phone or tablet, there's going to be a little gray arrow in the upper right hand corner. Just tap that and the same thing will happen. A drop down menu will appear, and that's how you find your description box. I also get a lot of questions about that as well. So I'm just taking Dollar Tree florals and decorating this wreath right now. I had some real acorns from last year that I glued, and I used that craft just for last year, so I went ahead and took the acorn little piece off to use for this craft, used some of the Dollar Tree hula skirt for the raffia, and made like a rough kind of messy bow, I guess, with that. And that's what we have with the wreath so far. And I'm starting with painting the family sign white. So make sure you allow enough time for these too. There's a lot of nooks and crannies on these signs. I love them, but they do take time to paint, and it's easy to miss spots. So when that's all dry, I take a black painter pen, and I'm just doing little stitching around the edges. And this is for the sole purpose of making it stand out more so people can see what the word is. I also think it's just cute to mention, and it goes with the buffalo check ribbon nicely. I hot glue it on the front of this piece. I also hot glue some twine on the back so we can hang this, but this turns out to be a really pretty festive seasonal decor piece, and it's perfect for Thanksgiving and autumn. For this piece, you're going to need a Dollar Tree little wooden acorn and some potpourri of your choice, preferably in the color brown. Now, I got lucky here. I picked this piece on purpose because it had that natural wood grain going through the center, and I thought, oh my gosh, that would be so pretty to work with because I love wood. I love wood grain. That's why I hate covering the wood pieces from the Dollar Tree if they're all wood with just paper or things like that. I usually switch to cardboard because the whole purpose, at least for me, to get the wood is to get that pretty wood look. So I try to preserve it whenever I can. So I'm using the color in Country Tan from Apple Barrel, and the other color is Territorial Beige in Apple Barrel paint. And I'm showing you how I'm just swirling it next to that grain. I didn't touch the grain to create additional grain and dimension. So if you can't find a piece with that grain look, you can also just do it with different colors of brown paint. And now I'm taking the potpourri, I put it in a plastic bag, and I took it and put it on the floor to hammer it because I'm on a tile there. It's a porcelain tile, so I will absolutely crush my tile if I try to hammer on there. But it turns out the potpourri is kind of soft, so it doesn't really break it up that much anyway. It just kind of makes it more bendable and pliable, which is good. I mean, it makes it easier to glue on. But I want to do a shout out for another YouTuber because I saw this last year from Justin Ray, and I will put his description or his link down in the description box. I thought it was such a cute idea. I'm doing it a little bit different, but I just thought that was such a cute idea for the top of an acorn. It just has that perfect kind of bumpy rough look. And this is a Dollar Tree potpourri, which usually when I use it, the fragrance goes away in a couple weeks. So I'm actually just storing it in another room with all my other craft supplies for fall because I haven't decorated my house quite yet. And I'm going to go ahead and use some cinnamon essential oil to put on this because I prefer that kind of smell, but it's a great way to get like a hidden air freshener in your home. And of course, the essential oils are a lot healthier to breathe in. In fact, if you Google essential oils, providing that you get good quality ones, they have a lot of health benefits if you choose wisely. So this can be a very multi-purpose craft. You can hang it in your house, and I guess when you breathe in certain oils, the fragrance gets into your bloodstream, into your cells. It can improve your, boost your immune system and improve your mood, all kinds of things. Really interesting. So that's a nice little tip. And now I'm just taking some wire cutters. I'm trimming around the edge just so this takes the shape of the acorn. And I don't know why my camera went blurry here. I didn't put anything close to it. It just decided to go a little blurry, but it's no big deal because I'm just taking burnt umber from Apple Barrel paint and giving it a border. And then for those of you that shop at the Dollar Tree and are familiar with these wood pieces, you know they are feather light. So I'm just using the Dollar Tree twine here, and I'm putting a little hanger on the back in case I want to hang it. I think I'm going to put this on my mantle and lean it up against the wall, but I just wanted to have that option. And that's it. Look at how cute this came out. For this craft, you're going to need one of these Dollar Tree plastic trays and one of the Dollar Tree metal signs. They come in different choices, so if you can't find that one, look for another one. You can even break or cut them off of the stakes. Sometimes they're attached to a metal stake. Go ahead and get that if that's all you can find. And I did a light sanding on top, very, very light sanding on top of that tray. Don't go too hard or it will peel. Just to rough it up a little bit, and then I spray painted it with the paint and primer I showed you, and it's outside right now drying. So while it's drying, I decide to try and sand off the glitter on this little wagon. This is probably the cutest thing I've ever found at the Dollar Tree, but when I was sanding, it was just removing the paint and really not the glitter. So I decided to go ahead and paint with the glitter and just kind of upgrade the colors to a more modern look, what's trending right now, because I thought the colors were kind of strange. We don't have blue or burgundy pumpkins. So And it turns out the glitter was a blessing in disguise because it gives it like a speckled texture look. You'll see at the very end in the final reveal, it adds to the look in a really nice way. So don't hesitate to paint over the glitter. And as a side note, be careful not to soak your signs and then rinse your glitter down the faucet, toilet, or down in the gutter, because that does go to our oceans. And there was an article 2 years ago that the glitter is killing our sea life. It's floating around the oceans. It's obviously difficult for them to breathe with millions of plastic particles. So do what you can. That's all you can do, but try and throw it in your trash can in a plastic bag so that it can stay in the landfills. So now I'm just taking some of the burnt umber and I'm just painting the little lines where they were before, and I'm using more of the antique wax. I'm just going to stain it up and give it shadows and dimension and make it look like the piece was originally, but just different colors. And that's what we have so far. And I'm using a red paint. I believe this paint is a multi-purpose paint by Craft Smart. So it's made to go on all different surfaces, and I got Fire Truck Red. And then I take a white paint pen and go over the letters just to cover up any areas where I kind of went over with the red paint a little bit, and just to make them pop a little bit more, because I did go over the edge, so some of the letters were looking deformed because they had red paint over them, and the white paint pen works perfect for this. So the colors I used for the pumpkins was a paint called Joanne Craft Essentials in Leaf Green for the green pumpkin. The other one is the Apple Barrel paint in the antique parchment. And lastly, I just take some black acrylic paint and paint the wheels. You don't have to have a multi-purpose paint either. You can always seal it with a clear varnish. I missed it at the very end when the whole craft piece is together. I missed the whole thing outside with a clear varnish, and that's fine. So I'm just using whatever I could find around my craft room to make some straight lines there, because my ruler was too long to fit in that little oval shape, but we're just making some faux shiplap. And now I'm using some of this water-based acrylic stain. I love this stuff. It's just, I kind of float between the antique wax and this because they definitely have different purposes. This has an amazing glide factor when you're working with a shiny surface. It glides really, really easy, probably because it's a water-based, stain. Another really good thing about it is it's odorless. So if you're sensitive to odors, both the wax and this water-based acrylic stain are odorless, which for me makes it more enjoyable when you're crafting because everything's right under your nose. So it's always nice when it's not gassing you to death. And I'm just taking a baby wipe again, kind of smearing it. And I dabbed the edges because I wanted that to stand out more like it was a frame on this. We're kind of doing a faux wood piece here. And if you're interested in the water-based stain, it is down below with my supplies. There's a link to Amazon to show you the one that I bought, and it will take you straight to it. So for this piece, I did need some stronger adhesive. So I'm using the Fix All by Super Glue. However, this, I didn't feel confident with it. So even though I use a Fix All, I do go back and use some super glue too, and I didn't show it on camera. So I use super glue for a permanent hold and hot glue just for that instant hold so that it can dry. And I do lay a heavy book on top of it overnight to let it dry. This is the next day, and I'm just taking some of the Spanish moss from the Dollar Tree, gluing it at the bottom because I thought that was so, so cute. This piece was one of those pieces I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, and it ends up being one of my favorite in this video. This is going to be in the middle of my mantle. This is kind of like my statement piece this year, because in real life it's 3D. You can tell it's metal. It just looks so, so high-end and cute. I absolutely love the way this craft came out. So now I'm taking just a regular old pencil and scribbling out those ship lines that kind of disappeared, the shiplap lines. That's all you need to do. It doesn't need to be anything fancy, and that's it. This is what we end up with. If you had fun today and enjoyed the video, don't forget to smash that like button. And as always, until the next video, breathe deep, fret not, and do things that make you happy.